Good morning. Good morning. Happy Monday to our daily huddle family. I am Kimberly. I almost said I'm Zach, but I'm not Zach. This is Zach. And we want to welcome you to our Money Monday. Today we're going to talk about to 401k or not to 401k. So it's going to be a fun, interesting conversation, right?
That's it. So in the interest of investments, we all wonder where to put our money and where to start. But have you ever wondered where working dogs save for retirement? A 401k9.
Oh, horrible.
It's terrible.
He is the best terrible joke killer ever.
I love it. I love it. 401k9. Oh
Dad joke central.
my God. No kidding.
I think we're going to need to hire a comedian to write Zach's jokes so he can
It's all good.
get a little better with us, right?
Well, I think I'm pretty good at it. So.
It was amazing.
Well, good morning, everybody. Today is Money Monday. Like we said just a few minutes ago, I'm Kimberly and this is Zach, and we are your hosts for today. And we're going to talk about to 401k or not to 401k. But before we do so, we want to get started with our fun questions that we ask every single time. So my first question is just going to go to you, Gio, because I see you and you're smiling and you're unmuted, right? So you win. What time is it and what are you grateful for?
Well, the time is now. The time is now. And what am I grateful for? I am grateful for water. I'm grateful for water.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Me too. I just made a commitment to myself for my water, like going forward. So I'm grateful for water today too. So awesome. All right, Stan, drinking your coffee. Where are you and who will you hug today?
Kimberly, I am right here now, the only place that I can be. And I'm definitely gonna hug my good friend's little daughter today because he and his wife are having another baby and we're gonna take care of her while the baby's being delivered. So I'm gonna hug her.
Awesome. Today is the day, huh?
Today is the day.
Well, congrats to them and
Wow.
congrats to you. Yeah, big
Thank
day.
you, Zach, Kimberly, thank you.
Awesome. Rashida, if you can hear me, tell me how you are. How are you?
Good morning, Daily Huddle family. I am blessed and not stressed and highly favored and loved by the universe.
Absolutely. You know, that's one of the things that just gets me so excited about these Monday mornings is being around quality people with quality attitudes. So, and it's tough sometimes right now out there in that financial world that we're in, right? When the news is scary and all those things that we've talked about. But as Gio said so eloquently, I think it was last week, that we should be focused on our personal economy and the things that we can control and be aware of the things that we can't, but let's stay focused on the things we can control, because that ultimately is what will keep us sane, is focusing on what we actually can do something about. So this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about to 401k or not to 401k. And what does that mean? I mean, the 401k in and of itself, most people think they understand it. Most people think that, you know, I need to have it because my company does, or they've heard of it before, right? It's become a very common term in passing. If you're at a coffee shop or if you're out somewhere and the conversation turns to savings or money, a lot of times the term 401k will come up. I'm going to start this morning by teaching you a little bit about where the 401k came from and let us work our way into the answer to that question. So I'm going to share a presentation with you guys, and I can spend, I've spent up to an hour on this presentation before. We don't have that this morning, so I'm going to kind of rock and roll through it so that you guys have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the day or at the end of the meeting. It won't be here all day. So, but I'm going to do a little screen sharing here. If you guys can give me that feature, that would be great. And
But
then,
I think it's always, while we're waiting on that to allow us, I think it's always interesting. Now, even more so, our daughter has her first job, and she just sent an email the other day, and she's going to be auto enrolled into her 401k like next month. And she's like, what do I do? Like, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about your choices. Let's talk about your options. So I think it is something we're all very, very familiar with because we all have access to it. So.
yeah. And so one of the things that people, when they start thinking about investing in a 401k, it's usually because their employer offers it, right? Let's see, to do this the old-fashioned way here. I think we should be good there. I like to tell people this, since there's a lot of people watching from a lot of different platforms, financial planning is something that's specific to an individual. So I'm talking about concepts and generalities, not giving advice this morning. Involve a professional if you have questions that can direct you in the right way, and then commit to your plan and stick with it. Right. The number one problem, we talked to somebody this morning on the phone, the number one problem with people's budgeting, saving, and getting to their retirement goals are discipline and lack thereof. So this is kind of I want to go to the history. My presentation is really slighted towards letting people understand why the 401k may or may not be the right thing for them, because it was targeted at a specific audience. But I want to talk to you guys about the facts of the 401k, where it came from, right? 401k is not a thing. It is a tax code. It is the way the IRS views a certain type of investment. And that's very important to understand. In 1978, Congress passed the Revenue Act, and that included a provision that allowed money to not be taxed until you used it down the road. This was actually designed because deferred compensation was a big thing for owners and managers and high executives in companies, where they were getting deferred compensation, which means money they were going to get down the road, even years down the road, but they were having to pay income tax on it in the year they were credited that money, not in the year they spent it. So the IRS said, oh, well, it makes sense. Let's tax it down the road. And why was that important? Well, let's talk about that. In 1980, a guy that's known widely as the father of the 401k as we know it, named Ted Benna, referred to Section 401k. And what his business was he would help businesses retain employees, and he would help them to manage their costs and their expenses. So what he did is he read this and he said, what if we take this same thing that's designed for executives and we take it down all the way to the masses inside these companies and allow them to defer a portion of their income and at the same time defer the taxes on that portion of their income. You guys see where we're coming from. Now, this is the 401k that we're aware of, right? Why do people mostly do a 401k to get started? Well, it's to retire down the road, but really they want to reduce their tax burden. CPAs love 401ks because their goal right now is to reduce your tax burden this year. So a lot of times CPAs will say, you got to max out your 401k. You got to do this. You got to do that. Let's talk about a little further into the development of a 401k. Anybody ever seen the federal government react quickly to something that wasn't like a crisis where they had to do something quickly? In this case, I think that we see here the federal government saw Ted Benna's approach probably. I don't know specifically if they audited what he did or whatever else. And they said, wait a minute, this looks really good. So 1 year after Benna tried this in 1980, the IRS issued new rules for the 401k that allowed employees to fund them through payroll deductions. The 401k as we know it was born in 1981. Why was that a good time for a 401k? Well, another fact, within 2 years of the development of that, almost half of the big companies that were offering pensions were now switching over to 401ks or considering that. And we could talk about that at another time. But why was it a good idea, or was it a good idea in 1980 for that investor to do that? Take a look at the tax rates in 1978. Can you guys see that? Look at this. I want you to see the top tax bracket in 1978 was 70%. 70% of the income being made and the top income earners was going back in the form of income tax. Would it have made sense in 1978 for those people to defer that 70% tax in hopes of taking it out at a later time? I would say yes. Why? 10 years later, this is what the entire tax rate code looked like. From 1978 to 1988, now the top tax bracket for married filing jointly was 28% instead of 70%. The reality of this is kind of scary though, because between 1978 and 1988, it made sense to defer taxation. But if you think about it, every dollar that's gone into a 401k since 1988 has actually gone up, or as you've been deferring lower taxation. This is forgive me, I'll get back to the tax rates have only gone up since this time. And so what does that mean? Do we think taxes are going up from where we are right now, or do we think taxes are going down? Well, the concept of a 401k in general is that you defer taxes at a high tax bracket so that when you get to retirement, you can pull them out at a lower tax bracket. But I think if we have looked at and we studied what's going on in the global economy, we see that there's been a lot of money infused and we've got a lot of inflation that's going on. And so what people need to understand about a 401k is that tax rates are high when tax rates and debt are inverse from each other. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at with these two slides here. So this shows you the U.S. national debt was very, very high between 1945 and this time frame, right? And in the same time frame, the tax rates were very high as well, because we have to source money to pay the national debts. And so we've been at a historically low tax rate, and you can see it starting to climb back up. So national debt is growing incredibly rapidly at this point. From this chart, you can see that. So do we think if the debt's going up, the tax rate is going to go up? Well, here's the other piece to this. In the past, when the 401k was created, before that, we had a pension. Most of our employers would have offered us a pension where we work somewhere for 30 years and we retire, and they give us a watch and they give us some lifetime income. And then we supported that with Social Security and our personal savings. But if you see the shift away from the pension and the question marks about Social Security, most of our money is in personal savings. And whose money is in a 401k? Most of it is ours. So there was an article that was written back in, I think this is 2009, about when is it time to retire the 401k. So we stayed along this path to do this. Now I'm just going to stop my screen share here and chat with you guys for just a couple of seconds so you can ask some questions. What I wanted you to understand is that the 401k has a place. And if you have an employer that's matching your 401k, and I mentioned this earlier in a previous episode, we have a little strategy that we borrowed from somebody that did some presentations for us at one point in time, where we focus first on free money in our retirement planning. And then after the free money, we focus on tax-free money. And then after we maximize our tax-free planning, then we focus on taxable money. So if you guys have seen free money, do you know what free money is? I want it. Give it all to me, right? If somebody's just giving me money, give it to me. Free money is a match on a 401k. That's what we're talking about there. So if you're investing in a 401k beyond your match, then that's something that we need to revisit, or you need to take a look at. The free money is what they match. Beyond the match, there might be somewhere different to place that money. So free money, hit that 401k match. And then let's think about it. Tax-free money. What can we do from a tax-free perspective? There are a lot of different options out there. A Roth IRA is great. We use life insurance products that have benefits beyond what that is, where you can accumulate money and take it out tax-free down the road if you do it the right way. Municipal bonds, things like that. Bond markets are kind of crazy and they don't normally outpace inflation. So, but there are many, many options in that tax-free bubble that we can use when we sit down and take a look at it. And then taxable savings down the road are your traditional mutual funds, your traditional savings accounts, anywhere where you're going to earn interest and get a 1099 at the end of the year for the interest that you've earned. So 401k or not 401k is a really big question. Another thing that I like to talk to people about when it comes to a 401k is that majority of people now, especially kids that are coming out of college, will change professions, not just jobs, but professions 4 to 5 times in their lifetime. I don't know why that is statistically, but it's factual. And the number one problem we have from that perspective is when people leave a job that has a 401k, sometimes in that requires a move to a different place, different location. Sometimes they've built up some debt and they want to pay that off. And they say, well, I've only got $10,000 in my 401k. So I think I'll just pay the penalties and pay the taxes and then use that money to pay off my debt or to help me move. And what they do in that is they hit a reset button and they go all the way back to ground zero when it comes to planning for their retirement and building that up. So look at longevity of employment where you are and decide if you really want to get into that 401k, or if you want to do something that what we call as portable, or that the investor owns, that they carry it with them from place to place. So
or if you're an entrepreneur,
Yep.
you don't have access to a 401k. So, we say 401k because that's what most of us know, but we could be talking about a SEP, which is your self-employed plan, right? Or a simple IRA or something like that. The conversation is the pre-tax money going in, growing tax deferred, but when you access it, that's when you're actually going to pay your taxes, which could be amazing and it could be horrible. But I think the reality of all the questions that we're talking about now is, do you think tax rates are going up, or do you think that they're going to stay low or go further down? And I think the answer is probably, at least at this moment, they're going up. I doubt that they'll ever be any lower than we are now in our lifetime. So does it make sense to defer taxes while they're low, to pay them when they're higher? I ask people all the time, I say, if you have $1 million in your 401k, how much money do you have? And they're like, $1 million? I'm like, well, no, right? You have $1 million, but when you use it, that's going to determine how much money you actually have, right? Because we think about money that we can spend. It's not what is my salary? It's like, what is my paycheck, right? That's what your 401k is. Your salary versus your paycheck. What are you bringing home with that? And the answer is it depends, and nobody can predict that for you, and no one can tell you. So I think it's important to understand your rules, understand, all of those different pieces, and at least use it as a tool in your planning, not as your only plan. And I think that's where a lot of times people make the mistake, is we don't know. We're not taught how money works, right? We learn because we make mistakes. We learn because we hit those walls and it becomes painful, or somebody tells us, or we listen to these crazy people on a podcast, or we watch a few TikToks, right? And then we learn how money works. So we're just saying, use it as a tool. If you have match money, take it, because that is free money. But if you don't, then have somebody else jump in and say, hey, let's talk through these options. Let's talk through these strategies so we can make your money as powerful for you at retirement as you want it to be. And just understand, right? The other piece that I think is important to understand about a 401k, and most people do, but some don't, is that obviously you pay taxes when you pull your money out on the back end, but you also can't access it before you're 59 and a half without emergencies and a couple of different caveats. And if you do pull it before 59 and a half, you've got taxes and penalties, but you have to start accessing it by age 72.
Yeah.
And if you don't access it at the rate the government says you have to access it by age 72, they're going to penalize you up to 50% of what you should have taken. So they have a lot of rules. Why? Because all that $1 million in your 401k, they need to be paid tax on it. Our budget, our world, right, is predicated based on the taxes that we pay. How do we determine, what portion? Think about any business, right? You have all these expenses and income. The government is like that as well, right? So how many people are turning 72 every single year? What's the portion they have in 401ks? They know this, right? We all do our taxes, or most of us do, right? What's the portion we have in our 401ks? What can we estimate the income from that group to be? So all of these different pieces are in place. I think it's just important, like I said, to know the rules of the game, to understand how it works, and to make sure that you use money for you instead of someone else using it against you.
Yeah, we Ron, I see your hand up. Give me just 1 second. We use an analogy describe a 401k using a farmer and seed. And this is really kind of where I'll leave you with this is if I'm a farmer and I know I've got to pay tax at some point in time, and I go to the feed and seed store and I come back and we're getting ready to cast our seed on the fields are ready to go. And the tax man pulls down the driveway and he says, okay, you got to make a choice right now. I need you to give me some of that seed now in the form of taxation. And you're like, no, it's my seed. I need it all. I want to grow my crop as big as I can. And he says, you have another option. I can come back when the harvest comes in and I can take my portion then. And you say, well, how much are you going to take when you come back? And he said, I don't know. I'll let you know when I come back. That's a 401k. We know what taxes are now. We don't know what they're going to be in the future, and we have zero control of how we can take it out. The rules are very, very concrete. So Ronald, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, let's open it up for questions.
Yeah, I heard you brought a 72 here. Is that a 72 you can actually pull the money without being taxed? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, so 72T is what you're referring to, and that's something.
Is that what you're referring to, or rule of 72?
No, not rule of 72. It looks like you mentioned when you're 72, you can take.
Oh yeah, when you're 72. Yeah, so and you have to. That's what's called a required minimum distribution, and a lot of people hear about those as an RMD. What that means is that when you reach age 72, the federal government says based on how much money you have inside a qualified account, which is a 401k, 403b, IRA, whatever, you have to take out this much every year. That way they can get their taxes on that money.
It is any distribution from those accounts, regardless of when you take it, will be taxable.
Correct. But they force you to take it out at age 72 and on so that they can get
even
the taxation.
If you don't need it. And I think that's where the problem comes in.
Yeah, there's a lot of depth.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So just like you said, you know, you don't get to be 72 anytime just like this. So what's the rule of taking the 401k and moving it to an IRA? I guess if you're changing company, which I've done probably 2 or 3 times already in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. So once you move that money to an IRA, that's, I think that's what's protected, and you don't get taxed when you make that move, correct?
You don't get taxed when you roll it over, as long as you don't take possession of the money, right?
Correct.
So if you move it from your 401k over into a new account, that's a qualified account like an IRA. And so there's a lot of different rules that we're touching on here, but that's correct. But it's still treated the same way from a tax perspective in an IRA.
When you use the income.
When you take the income down the road, you can't take it until 59 and a half without a penalty. You'll always pay tax at whatever the current income tax rate is for you. And you have to take it by age 72, or at least start taking it, or they will penalize you for not taking it. So there's a lot of rules that the 401k is designed. And that's kind of what I was hitting on at the beginning when I said the IRS doesn't make changes quickly. The IRS saw their win when the 401k became the most popular investment tool. They saw the future of income for the IRS because the way that
and it was
program
good for companies too. It was cheaper, right? It was cheaper than the pensions. It was cheaper than the defined contributions. It was
Sure.
cheaper per employee. So it was better all around. And it's not a bad thing. It just fits in certain situations. And right now we use it as a blanket retirement piece. And I just think people should.
It was never designed
advice.
to be a singular retirement strategy. It was designed to be cheaper than a pension and allow companies to maintain or retain their employees. That's all it was designed for. And we use it now across the board as our one and only strategy. We don't personally, but in the United States, it seems to be that way. Go ahead.
So from an IRA, in order for it to be tax sheltered, what next move can you make?
So there's no way. So while it's inside the IRA, as that money is growing, you're not paying taxes on it.
All right.
But when you pull that out and you put it in your bank account, when you start using it as income, you will pay taxes on it. The only way not to pay tax, well, actually, there is no way. You could pull that money out of a traditional IRA and pay the taxes now because you know it's cheaper, and then put it into a Roth. because a Roth IRA is different, where it's after tax dollars going in, growing tax deferred with complete tax-free access. But regardless, whether it's today or 25 years from now, the money in that 401k or that IRA or wherever, the lump sum, when you use it, you will be taxed on it, period. Because it's never been taxed.
There are ways to minimize with a Roth conversion, let's say, where you are going to pay the taxes but not have to pay the penalties. So you don't want to go into your IRA and take it out and then go try to establish a new account. You want to make sure you work with a professional to protect you from that kind of a tax liability. There will be tax in some form at some point on the money that you put into the 401k, or if it's in a 403b qualified account. So
Those are just the rules. What other questions do we have out there this morning? Any other questions? We have time for one or two more.
All right. Well, I can tell you that we probably brought up a bunch of questions, right? And you guys you're spinning, you're thinking about that. And so if you have those, our contact information is out there. So we're happy to talk to you about your specific situation. I know that we've got some things on the calendar that as the Daily Huddle we're putting together. So we will be spending a lot of time outside of our normal podcast time, talking in depth about these subjects, but we're always happy to work one-on-one too. So if somebody needs some consultation about their current situation, reach out to us.
And I think it's also important to know, if a 401k is the only way that you can invest, do it, right?
Absolutely.
At least put something away. But anyway, I think it's important, like I said, know the rules of the game that you're playing. We're all playing the same money game. Understand how that works and use it for your benefit instead of using it against you. And that's the name of the game, right?
Absolutely.
Knowledge will make you more powerful as long as you understand all of the moving pieces and moving parts. Anything else you want to say about 401ks or anything before we wrap up for the day? And I see your question about how you can arrange that. I will, in just a second, I will see if I can respond to you with our contact information. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say?
So I think that, like Kimberly said, it's most important that you do something and save for retirement. We talked about discipline at the beginning of the podcast, and that's one of the things that most people lack, is the discipline and focus on their own financial success down the road. So the biggest problem that we have right now is people are unaware, and they're comfortable thinking that if I'm putting 3% into my 401k, I'll be fine. And the reality of it is 3% into your 401k, unless you're, getting matched 100% on that, and you're, 22 years old, you're probably going to need to do something different. You're probably going to need to add to that, do something a little bit different than that. But that's what we do. And knowing where you are is step number one. And so just ask your questions if you've got them. So, all right, guys. Well, without any further ado, I want to say thank you for your time. I hope that you guys got something valuable out of this that you can share with someone else. And that's what we're here for, is to bring value to you guys. So I want to remind you, as we go out into our day to day, of our 8 tenets that we focus on. Number one, love. Be that person. Laugh out loud. It's healthy. It helps you. Stress less. That was fantastic that Rashida said earlier. I'm here and I'm fantastic. I'm not going to be stressed about things I can't be. Eat mostly plant-based. Take care of your body. Give. And we'll talk some about that in the next few weeks, about how to do that in some other aspects. Move or sleep. Sorry, I need more of it. Sleep. Move. Get up and move around. And then lastly, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Take that pause. Don't react. Take that pause. So, guys, happy Monday. Let's go out and crush it this week and have a wonderful week. See you same time, same place tomorrow on the Daily Huddle.
Bye, guys. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Kimberly, Zack. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Great day, everybody.
Thank you.